Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com. Now, I made a recent video talking about the appalling, horrifying completion of Beethoven's 10th Symphony by a mixture of human beings and artificial intelligence. And, human intelligence is really dumb enough without needing artificial assistance for extra stupidity. But I have to confess with enormous shame and trepidation that Tinnitus Classics was itself involved in the completion mania that swept through and is still sweeping through the classical music world. Why do we do it? What is the point? Is it because we really need more stuff by these people who already wrote tons and tons and tons of music, most of which people never listened to? I mean, Beethoven wrote tons of music, the vast majority of which goes unplayed, believe it or not. Same is true of Mozart, same is true of Bach. I mean, it's not enough to have 200 church cantatas. You need to complete one missing one. Or Mozart's Requiem needs 5 different versions completing it. I mean, it's a mania. It's a mania. Partly it's a parasitical desire on the part of bored musicologists and desperate performers to attach themselves to the names of the great. I mean, partly for fun and profit. I mean, granted, they want to make some money. They want to get names for themselves. They want to do anything they can to get publicity. And nothing gets publicity better than to announce a newly discovered or newly completed, which is the same thing, work of some famous person. And frankly, that was the motivation of Tinnitus Classics in releasing the first ever recording of Anthony Payne's completion of Elgar's oratorio, Gerontius in Purgatory. It was a shameless effort to take advantage of the English market and its lemming-like insistence that everything that Elgar did had to be important and had to be purchased immediately. And it worked. Tinnitus Classics made a pile of money on this recording. It featured, a raft of soloists. Let me see who was on it here. I need to talk to you about it because, here we are. Ian Bostridge, Linda Finney, the mezzo-soprano, John Shirley Quirk, baritone, with Richard Hickox conducting the BBC Midlands Philharmonic. Oh, what a magnificent project it was. Unfortunately, it went out of print rather quickly because once everybody had it, they didn't need more of it. And of course, Elgar is completely unmarketable outside of the UK. So it was a quick but limited flash in the pan. However, quite a profitable one. And just to show you how crazy this whole thing got, I'm going to read you the review that I originally wrote when it came out. Here we go, folks. It's well known that Elgar contemplated an oratorio trilogy based on the Gerontius story. And as Anthony Paine, remember he did Elgar's Third Symphony, as Anthony Paine asserts in his scholarly introduction to this latest reconstruction, quote, the conception was virtually complete in Elgar's thoughts at the time of his death, and the only elements missing were the music and the text, the restoration of which is a simple matter once one apprehends the composer's intentions, unquote. The first suggestion that a reconstruction might be possible occurred to Paine while filling in the gaps in Elgar's projected Third Symphony. The composer's posthumous thoughts, or what remains of them, are housed in the British Museum, where they were catalogued with, according to Paine, a shocking disregard for their logical order and sequence. As work progressed on the Third Symphony, Paine stumbled across Elgar's initial idea for the oratorio and was able to trace the conception as it developed in his mind from its inception around 1915 virtually until his final illness. What we have then is a work in 3 parts, the special genius of which, again according to Paine, quote, resides in the composer's unique ability to write extensive tracts of music embodying the theological concept of a place out of time, between heaven and hell. This is Purgatory, where nothing at all happens, as individual souls endure the time-consuming ritual of purification before being granted redemption, unquote. Gerontius's actual moment of admission to paradise is reserved for the third item in the trilogy, quote, the Assumption of Gerontius, unquote, at which Paine is currently hard at work. He's been postponed, by the way. COVID, COVID. It's the reason everything is delayed these days, so it's COVID. But it's coming. The drama of this middle panel consists entirely of the great man's soul attempting to discover just how much time it must spend before moving on to its heavenly reward, and gradually resigning itself to the reality that it will never know and must simply do nothing and wait. To suggest that such an outline presents serious musical challenges would be an understatement. In Part 1, after an intensely neutral orchestral prelude, suggestive of nothing in particular, according to the composer's original thoughts, the chorus of idling spirits welcomes the soul of Gerontius with a solemn hymn, "Make thyself at home, O happy suffering soul." Paine is a bit evasive as to the actual source of the text, considering the fact that Cardinal Newman never got beyond the original Dream of Gerontius, and his last thoughts, owing to a bequest of his American relatives, are now housed in the Library of Congress, to which Paine did not have access. Be that as it may, the results are entirely typical of the clergyman's special way with the English language. One particular highlight of Part 1 is Gerontius's bemused aria, "Twixt heaven and hell, fain would I remain, not." Part 2 contains the high point of the work, the thrilling confrontation between the soul of Gerontius and the angel of the monotony, here sung with appropriate sobriety by Linda Finney. In the ripest possible neo-Handelian style, Elgar / Payne have hit on the brilliant idea of illustrating the unending dullness of Purgatory by giving the angel a 20-minute-long da capo aria. "Be thou accustomed to inactivity, thy time is well and truly not nearly nigh." That's the name of the aria. The composer's genius at word setting is enhanced by a footnote in the score, another of the original thoughts that Paine worked from, expressly forbidding the singer any embellishments on the repeat, thus giving the aria an elegantly and uneventfully symmetrical structure, enhanced by the fact that its vocal range never extends beyond the interval of a minor third. In Part 3, Gerontius, nearly mad with the tedium of enduring purification, is consoled in a mellow pastoral interlude by the soul of his beloved gardener, Maximilian, with whom he shares fond memories of horticulture in the charming duet, "Thou bounteous peat and fertile loam doth maketh me ever desirous of home." The chorus admonishes them in the sternly emphatic one-part fugue, "Leavest behind thy fleshy failings," and thus chastened, the soul of Gerontius realizes that it must await the will of the Lord with patience and humility. The piece ends with an uplifting duet with chorus, featuring both Gerontius and the angel of the monotony, who assert the strict doctoral line, "The eons pass, the ages wither, in God's own time shall thy soul drawn be thither." It's difficult to overestimate Paine's achievement in realizing this work so idiomatically, and in particular in divining Elgar's radical intentions regarding both orchestration. The ensemble consists only of 46 violins, which play in unison throughout, and especially tempo. The whole piece takes place in an andante moderato in 4/4, save for a single fermata on the closing middle C. Conductor Richard Hickox and the strings of the BBC Midlands Philharmonic play with warmth and great conviction, making the work's 118 minutes sound like, well, only 118 minutes, which is no mean accomplishment. Ian Bostridge gives his all as the soul of Gerontius, running the entire expressive gamut from indifference to resignation, As the gardener Maximilian, veteran baritone John Shirley Quirk makes a welcome, if somewhat wobbly, return to disc after a long absence. The sonics uphold the high standards that we've come to expect from these productions. This is in sum a triumph in the best English choral tradition, and not to be missed by either devoted Elgarians or practitioners of sensory deprivation, which in any case is much the same thing. So there you have it. You see, there are so many pieces that have been completed, and you didn't need artificial intelligence to do it. In fact, you barely needed human intelligence to do it. You just do it, and out they pop, and they each have their market, and people scramble to hear them, and they get their day in the sun, their 15 minutes of fame. They get publicized. Everybody gets all excited for about 30 seconds, certainly not for as long as it takes to listen to the bloody things, and then we all just forget about them and move on with our lives. And that is precisely what I suggest we do with Gerontius in Purgatory. So keep on listening, folks. Thank you so much for joining me. I can't wait to see what gets finished next. Oh my God, the excitement is, well, it's like spending a lot of time in purgatory, isn't it? Take care, and thank you for joining me.